To the cloud. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual education program at Cancer Support Community South Bay. I'm Rebecca, the program manager, and I welcome you to this workshop titled CBD and Cannabis Highlights and Q&A. Before we begin, if this is your first time joining us, CSC South Bay's mission is to ensure that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community so that no one faces cancer alone. We serve the South Bay, Long Beach, and Orange County area all at no cost. Our program includes support groups, networking groups, healthy lifestyle classes, social activities, and educational programs like this workshop. Educational programs are open to all. If you'd like to hear more about our services or join a community, please visit our website at cscsouthbay.org. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our workshop speaker. Elisabeth Mack is the founder of Holistic Caring. The website is holisticcaring.com. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And welcome to all of you. It's my pleasure to be here. I drop in about once a year to do one of these programs. This is April. We just got through 420. Some of you might have heard about that. It's sort of the cannabis holiday. But we're here to talk about the medical side of cannabis. And this presentation is called Cannabinoids and Cancer. And cannabinoids are really what cannabis is when we think about the big picture of it. So my name is Elisabeth Mack. My bio is here. I've been a nurse just about 37 years, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, MBA in Healthcare Administration. I spent 8 years in hospitals, 19 years in insurance companies, working in operations and then eventually sales. But what happened to me was that I crashed my bicycle and I needed to have some surgery. And when I was out having surgery, I was introduced to CBD at my chiropractor's office through a medical massage. I said, "Hey, what is this? It smells funny." And she said, "It's cannabis." And I said, "Well, why are you putting that on me?" And she said, "Well, it's anti-inflammatory. It's going to help you get back to that pre-surgical arm faster and work through PT." And I said, "Okay, well, sign me up and tell me more." And that was the impetus to me learning and researching this plant, using it for myself, and then eventually starting my own practice, Holistic Caring. And then I merged with The Green Nurse. So that's our company now. I'm also CEO of Bloom Hemp and Holistic Caring Inc., which is our nonprofit. I'm the past treasurer of the American Cannabis Nurses Association, director of Los Angeles Health. Director of Health for Los Angeles Normal. And also director out here in Coachella Valley. I'm in Palm Springs, and there's a Cannabis Alliance network here. This is my book, Cannabis for Health, Become a Coach. And then I also am the co-host of the Green Nurse podcast. So I keep quite busy. So today we're going to talk about what cancer is and how we might be able to add cannabinoids as part of the treatment team that you all have. I'm sure that you have oncologists and you have a wonderful support center. But what is cancer? Just the shorthand version is it's a disease of overgrowing cells. All of our cells have an on switch and an off switch, and cancer cells essentially lose the off switch. And it affects everybody without boundaries. It doesn't matter who you are, we can all be prone to it. Carcinogens, or the development of cancer cells, are what basically happens. They ignore the signals to turn off. They multiply, they divide, and they have DNA mistakes which cause more abnormalities. The American Cancer Society finds that 50% of all men and 33% of all women will have some type of cancer in their lifetime. There are over 200 types of cancer, and it can spread through the lymphatic and circulatory system so that people can develop a second cancer in another site that might be unrelated. So how do we treat cancer in America and globally? Well, there are a few ways: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, targeted therapies, and immunotherapy. That's basically the menu. And a lot of times we'll rotate through these things. Sometimes they'll shrink it with chemotherapy before surgery. Sometimes they'll do surgery and then rotate through chemotherapy and radiation therapy. And then immunotherapy comes into play for those lucky enough to qualify for it in a much more gentle way. But all of these are sort of a mix and match, and oncologists are able to rotate through all of them. But when we treat cancer, we can also have treatment side effects. Just like any pharmaceutical, there are always side effects to most of everything that we do. And on this list, you know, some of you might see some of the things you're struggling with: nausea and vomiting associated with chemotherapy, along with the fatigue, the inability to sleep, anxiety, and coping issues with, you know, some of the threats that we are facing. Hair loss, neuropathies are very common from chemotherapy, body aches and bone pain, lymphedema, DVT, deep vein thrombosis, and clotting issues, graft versus host disease, mucositis, early menopause, skin rashes, motivation loss, and apathy. So all of these can happen, and sometimes people get many of them at the same time. So that's sort of where people find me at. You know, people come to a holistic caring and they're like, Elisabeth, I'm struggling, I've got cancer, and I want this cannabis as an option, but I don't know where to start. And so how do we explain how to get started and what to do and what to take and how to use it for your best option? And there are many different options that we're going to go through, but I'm going to start with a little bit of theory and science and a little bit of history, just so that all of you realize that cannabis is legal here in America, and we're all here in California. So that makes it even easier. But if you know, cannabis has been a medicine for tens of thousands of years, but it was first entered in the US dispensatory back in the 1850s. And by 1920, we had the big pharmaceutical companies that were making cannabis extracts, so those tincture bottles. But in 1937, we had something called the Marijuana Tax Act, where cannabis was taxed out of existence, and alcohol prohibition moved to cannabis prohibition. And it was really motivated by racially and corporate interests. And so people were really, you know, subjugated to just following the laws, and it wasn't available to physicians to prescribe anymore. By 1941, it was taken out of the pharmacopoeia. And then in 1970, cannabis was made illegal through the Controlled Substance Act, as it was slated into Schedule 1. And Schedule 1 is where there's no medical benefits and highly addictive and abusive, and it's dangerous. And it sits there with heroin, LSD, and PCP. So we have a divide between the federal legality and the state legality. California passed Proposition 215 back in 1996. And of course, now we have adult use and recreational access. But we have 38 medical states in America now where cannabis is legal, and 25 allow for adult use, or what we call over the counter, where you don't ever need the doctor recommendation anymore, which is what we have here in California. Last year, the cannabis nursing was designated a specialty by the American Nursing Association, and nurses like myself play a unique role as the bridge between healthcare and the cannabis industry to educate patients, because the doctors who are writing the FDA pharmaceuticals have not yet signed up to work in this. But that's coming too, because the HHS, the Health and Human Services, along with the FDA, are both petitioning the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, to reschedule cannabis to a Schedule 3. And this is political, but it's coming. And hopefully by the end of this year, we will have an end to federal prohibition. So what is this plant? This plant is an incredible healing plant. It's got over 1,500 natural compounds. Most of them we call cannabinoids. And we're going to talk about several of them, including CBD and THC tonight. Terpenes, which influence the strain, and whether it's stimulating or sedating. And all of that is influenced by how you grow the plant, the soil, the cultivation techniques. But cannabinoids and cannabis is what we call pleiotropic. And this is a unique word in science that means that it changes nearly every physiological condition in the body simultaneously. And that gives us very effective efficiency to reduce many symptoms at one time. So when we think about some of those treatment side effects that we looked at, or treating cancer itself, how is it that cannabis can do so many things at one time? And that is because of the pleiotropic nature. It goes through the body, activating systemic circulation, And that way it can get to many different things at the same time. And this is a depiction of the human body, and it will show you sort of where the cluster of CB1 and CB2 receptors are. And what this means is that there are, think about your cell, every cell in your body has a membrane of the surface area. And on that surface area are receptors. And this is how cells communicate with each other. There's receptors on the cell membranes, and then compounds and neurotransmitters that float back and forth between them. And what we have found is that there are CB1 receptors that we call cannabinoid receptor 1 and cannabinoid receptor 2. And really, they're focused on the brain and the central channel for CB1. And then CB2 is all of our immune cells, which are key for fighting cancer, because the immune cells are the ones that are targeted when we have carcinogenesis and mutations that go awry. So the good thing is, if we have these cannabinoid receptors on our cell membranes, and we can activate them with this plant, which we're going to get to next, then we might be able to reprogram those cells that have mutated to go back to balance, to go back to normal homeostasis, and to be able to go away if they are cancer cells. And the interesting thing is that we make endogenous compounds called anandamide and 2-AG. Those are our endocannabinoids, just like we make endorphins. If we hurt ourselves, our body's giving us endorphins to mask the pain so that we can carry on a little bit. Well, when we're sick, when we have cells that are imbalanced, we can make endocannabinoids that go through a retrograde signaling and basically messaging to each other to be able to come back to balance. And when we're deficient of our endocannabinoids, we can substitute with THC and CBD and CBN, because these compounds uniquely fit into those locks. So if the receptor is the lock, the cannabinoids are the key. They're all over our body. And that's basically what this says. The endocannabinoid system was discovered in 1960s. Raphael Mechoulam was funded by the NIH here in America. He was a scientist in Israel, and he's called the godfather of cannabis research, and discovered that we are hardwired for this plant because of the endocannabinoid system. And so when we, as humans, take in these plant compounds, we can eat them, we can inhale them, we can take them in tinctures, they can go to our cells, and they can continue to give us those messages that tell the body to either do something or not do something, turn something up, turn something down, to bring us back into homeostasis. And homeostasis is that state of balance where everything just works. And they do this through retrograde signaling, or that feedback loop. Most of our communication between cells are one way, and cannabinoids go in reverse. And that is why it is so key that we learn how to use these compounds and to deschedule cannabis so that we can study them. But essentially, when the body is deficient in the endocannabinoids, our chronic conditions, and cancer is one, we can supplement. We can supplement with the phytonutrients, the phytocannabinoids that mimic the endocannabinoids to bring us back into balance. And it really is, I'll tell people, if you're low on vitamin D, you can take vitamin D and bring yourself back to par. And that's what we're doing when we supplement with these plant compounds. And this is a graphic description. You can see all of our systems in the body are all interrelated. Every single one of our cells in the body have those receptors. And if we're short on the endocannabinoids to be able to balance us out and correct signaling errors, then we can substitute with CBD and THC to give those messages to bring our body back into balance. Okay, that's it for the science. Yeah, we can always, if we want to talk deeper, we can go back to that in questions. But there's an Italian scientist that is part of the discovery of the endocannabinoid system. And he coined the term eat, sleep, relax, forget, and protect. Those are the core systems that we need. We need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to be able to relax, we need to forget so that we can learn new things and keep going. And our immune system needs to be a shield that's protecting us against the harms of the environment, the toxins, what we eat, etc. And all of these body systems, our appetite, our digestion, blood pressure, blood sugar, our immune functions, our mood, our memory, our balance, our coordinations, our pleasure, reward, pain, reproduction, sleep, temperature, every single one of these are impacted by the endocannabinoid system. So if we're not in balance, we can bring ourselves back into balance on any of these variables by taking in some of these compounds as a supplement. But the key is how, what, etc. And that is the art of this science. So cannabis is complementary. And what I mean by that is it needs to be used in addition to conventional care. Some people come to me and said, I don't want to do any oncology treatments anymore. I just want to use cannabinoids. And we need to have a discussion on what that means for them. But I like to work side by side with the oncology teams and being able to help give this as an additional option to help people cope with some of the treatment side effects and then hope for some treatment benefits in eradicating the cancer as well. Cannabis compounds are a natural compound. Your body recognizes it. When we think about the oils, they need to be potent and they need to be pure. So we don't want any contaminants in that, which is why you always need to buy your medicines through a regulated supply chain. But it's a gentle compound that your body recognizes because these plant nutrients plug right into those receptors and can help activate those and balance it back to normal. It's palliative, so that means that it can relieve discomfort. Cannabinoids are safer than most other pharmaceuticals, very few side effects. And also it gives us rest of the mind, which then helps the body heal. First, we look at tuning into the spirit, then we tune into the mind, then we tune into the body. And really it's almost a trickle down healing effect. But with cannabinoids, you get body, mind, spirit healing very differently than just with conventional care. So what about cannabis for cancer? Is it curative or is it palliative? Curative means that it might help shrink the cancer cells, restrict the nutrients, and stop it from spreading. And the science is there to show us that it is, in fact, many ways curative, but we need a lot more research. And because of cannabis being federally illegal, they have not funded it yet. But it is palliative. And, if we go back to 1996 and the AIDS crisis where people were dying and they were saying this has to be approved because it's the only thing that helps them eat and sleep and reduce pain and reduce anxiety, then now that's how we got it legal. But now we understand palliative. And that is what most people are using cannabis for in conventional care now. But this book, Justin Kander wrote, he was working in early development of cancer and cannabis here in California, coined the term cannabis and apoptosis, and says when cancer cells are exposed to cannabis, they experience apoptosis, which is that programmed cell death. So remember I said cancer cells lose the off switch. This helps them reprogram that off switch so that the cancer cells can die and then the healthy tissues remain. Unlike chemotherapy that kind of like takes out everything. And then you have to regrow healthy cells back. Phytocannabinoids appear to be a biologically ideal solution to cancer. And in cell and animal models, cannabinoids exert anti-cancer activity against most cancers, and their generalized therapeutics effects indicate that they might fight all cancers at some level. And it's really exciting to really go and look at this, because if we're looking at apoptosis here, that's that on and off switch. Killing the tumor cells by triggering the off switch and allowing cell death, angiogenesis inhibiting. And this is basically putting the tumor cells under siege and stopping them from getting the nutrients that they need to be able to have energy. And cancer cells are notorious for getting energy wherever they can. And ketogenic diets are a good thing too, which can help prevent sugar from getting to those cancer cells because they love sugar. Anti-metastatic, and that is stopping the spread. There are scientific studies now that show CBD especially is good at shutting down ID1, which is the genes that spread the cancer cells, and it's basically stopping and containing it, and also stopping proliferation or the growth of the cancer cells itself, and then combating the side effects from other conventional treatments and alleviating suffering. Okay, so physical benefits. Some of the things you might want to think about as far as in the body. Cannabinoids can reduce pain and muscle tension, giving you a better day, better relaxation, reducing nausea and vomiting, even the anticipatory nausea that comes with chemotherapy. So we'll talk about how to use that in a minute. But stimulating and increasing appetite, cachexia or wasting syndrome is a problem with chemotherapies. People don't want to eat cannabis. One of the first things that can do with THC specifically is inspire appetite again. Stimulates bowel activity and peristalsis. THC can slow things down. CBD can speed things up, but a balance can help. Immune support and balancing cortisol and stress hormones, increasing mobility by reducing pain, and then stimulating and balancing the nervous system. Topicals can moisturize skin and reduce some skin breakdown, especially after radiation. Improving peripheral neuropathy. CBD and THCA and the acidic compounds can be really powerful at that, as well as CBG. Reducing reliance on opioids and other pharmaceuticals. And that's one of the key things that people, they don't want to take the opioids. They don't feel good. They get constipated. They get dizzy and confused and sleepy all the time. And cannabis is such a good pain medicine. We can use it with the opioids to spare them and use a lot less of them. On the emotional and mental side, it can decrease anxiety and increase relaxation. And we know that anxiety is right after pain as far as the second reason why people use cannabis to relax and to quiet some of that chatter and some of that stress and worry. And it does that by hitting the receptors right in the brain that say, A, you're not in pain, and B, you can relax and just take a deep breath. Cannabinoids can promote sleep and aid insomnia. Decrease fatigue with boosts of energy. And this is an art also. So having THC at bedtime can help you sleep, but very small amounts in the morning and in the afternoon can give you energy so that you can get through the day. The ability to laugh and respond to humor, watch a movie with your family after dinner and be able to laugh and have that feeling of well-being again. Improves self-image and body awareness, reduced isolation, an internal calm despite external chaos. That set point feels stronger to you. Self-determination and empowerment, having the agency, and even having a cannabis toolkit, which I'll show you in a minute, gives you the power to be able to be at the wheel of your own life again, rather than depending on what time it is and what pills you can have. And to be able to look into what you need to do next. And again, just to reinforce body, mind, spirit healing, it's not just like a pharmaceutical that activates a receptor. It's much more nuanced throughout the entire body. In 2017, the National Academy of Science and Engineering published a report called The Health Effects of Cannabis and Cannabinoids, and over 10,000 studies, and they had conclusive evidence that cannabinoids are antiemetics, or helping for nausea and vomiting, in the treatment of chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting. And we do have synthetic compounds, synthetic THC, dronabinol or marinol, and you can get that from your doctor. And some people do well with that. Some people do not, because synthetic THC is not balanced. What we want to have is THC together with its friends in the entourage effect, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is conclusive proof. They also know that it helps with MS spasticity and muscle and bone pain. And we're working on more trials as we speak. Sativax is a pharmaceutical drug approved in about 30 different countries around the world. And they have been doing studies with glioblastoma and cannabis. And GW Pharmaceuticals, they're now called Jazz Pharmaceuticals, but they created Sativax as well as Epidiolex, which is the other FDA-approved CBD version. And they showed that using this one-to-one, it's half CBD and half THC, Sativax, and it enhances Temodar, which is the gold standard chemotherapy agent for glioblastoma. And according to their press release, it increased the one-year survival rate by 30%. And it also helped with the side effects of that chemotherapy. So when we're looking at how to use cannabis with other drugs and chemotherapy and immunotherapy specifically, The key takeaway that I want you to all know is that you can use them together, but we need to space them in the dosing. And this is really key with using cannabis with the pharmaceuticals anyway. I always tell people, take your pharmaceuticals first, have lots of water, then eat something, move things along, and then an hour or two later, you can take the cannabinoids. And as long as they're not competing in the liver, we can reduce interactions. But then also we want to space them with when you take the chemotherapy. Some people, and everything goes back to monitoring as well. So working together with your oncologist, being very open about using cannabis, but saying, can I use cannabinoids with this chemotherapy? Many patients will have a puff off a vape or a capsule or a tincture before they go to the infusion center, before they get the chemotherapy. And some chemotherapies are made a little bit stronger by cannabinoids. And that's what we're finding here. So sometimes if the cannabinoids are potentiating that drug or making it stronger, we want to have a space of a couple of days. So in other words, maybe you're doing chemotherapy once a week or once a month. So what we do then is we have the cannabinoids take it for a week, then stop it a day or two before the chemotherapy. Then you have the chemotherapy and then allow it to sit in the body. And then a couple of days after, then you can resume the cannabinoids. And again, this is the art and science of clinical practice with cannabinoids as well as medicine. But it's a new science, and many people are doing well in combining them. When it comes to immunotherapies depend on helper T cell proliferation for anti-cancer effects. And so we want to minimize cannabis use with immunotherapies such as Keytruda or Opdivo, because cannabinoids are anti-inflammatory. When I told my story about having my shoulder surgery after that bicycle crash, I was shocked to see how well cannabinoids were better than the Motrin I was taking as an anti-inflammatory, because I didn't want the oxycodone. I just couldn't take it. But I was taking a lot of Motrin, and I was able to not take the Motrin because I was taking cannabis oil. And it really is anti-inflammatory. So immunotherapy inflames the immune system. It's firing you up. So we don't want to have a foot on the gas and a foot on the brakes at the same time. So what we do is we keep THC specifically down to 25 milligrams a day for comfort dosing when we give immunotherapy, and CBD down to around 100 milligrams a day. It can still be therapeutic, but we take away some of the risk. And when we're looking at just general treatment, there are many people. In fact, about half of the patients with cancer in America that are in legal states or in a city like Los Angeles, especially, are using cannabis to help assuage some of their symptoms, as well as pain, insomnia, anxiety, stress, nausea, and vomiting. Half of those believe that the cannabis could treat the cancer itself. They're reading a lot of things, Rick Simpson oil and RSO, you can kill the cancer cell in 90 days. Not necessarily true, but people read that online and they think it's true. And only 39% discussed using cannabis with any of their physicians. And, hopefully, after this segment, you're going to be open with your physician and say, hey, I'd like this option. I met this nurse that I may be working with, and I want to be able to do both. But cannabis products are safe, but the key takeaway here is that you got to have good quality oil. And we mentioned earlier to buy it in the regulated supply chain, so at a dispensary or at an online CBD shop where you can find the certificate of analysis. You want to make sure that medicine's been tested for potency, for purity, free from contaminants. This is a plant. It grows in the soil. It can pull up toxins from the soil. And then also pesticides. You don't want to be ingesting anything that could be harmful to you when you're sick, for God's sakes. And so anyway, just be cautious when you're using cannabis. And when we compare cannabis to other drugs, there are a lot of drugs that we're taking that show no clinical benefit. A lot of times there'll be a new drug that's rushed to market because there's a high clinical need. but it may or may not be effective. And chemotherapy on its own only has about a 3% efficacy rate of actually curing cancer. So, just because something's FDA approved doesn't necessarily mean it's right, or that it's right for your specific cancer. One of my favorite resources, and the link is here, and I've provided the slides, and you can click on this slide when you get the PDF out of the chat. But cancer.gov, the National Institute of Health, has a very robust section on cannabis and cannabinoids for cancer. And this is a really great resource, so please go through this at your leisure. They have all kinds of information that I would implore you to read and study, and it's all free, so you can click on that. And the NIH is also funding some of the cannabis and cancer development from all of the biology, the tumor microenvironment, cannabinoid pathways, and the signaling to influence the biology in the body. And cancer really is a biological disease. It really is. When we come down to where receptors and cells and that sort of thing, how do we turn these cancer cells off again? And then how do we give people the right treatments? What do they take? How do they take it? All of this is coming. This was created a couple of years ago, and it takes years. I'm working with a nurse, colleague, friend of mine in Chicago at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's, and they are funded now for some of these cancer trials. There are other pockets of universities around the country where this is starting, but keep in mind, until the government reschedules at the federal level, it's very difficult to study these compounds because of Schedule 1. So it's difficult. But anyway, so these are the compounds that you could find at a dispensary. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of cannabis. I mentioned that there are 1,500 compounds. There's about 500 cannabinoids. About 140 of them have been identified. And they are, when you look at the plant, if you get a bud, you'll see that it's sticky, it's resinous, that the flowers of that plant, that's where the cannabinoids are, as well as the terpenes. And they're protective compounds that the plant creates to defend itself against bugs and radiation from the sun, as well as environmental toxins, etc. And THC is probably the most famous compound of all, and you can breed the plant so that it's high in THC or high in CBD. And generally, about 10 years ago, there used to be a lot of plants that had a good sampling of both cannabinoids in the same plant. Not so much anymore. It's really, and this is because of the commercial market. People want high THC because of the recreational effects. Medicine plants want high CBD. And so we're really kind of growing both ways. But THC binds directly to those CB1 and CB2 membranes, receptors on the cell membranes. CBD is activating about 70 different receptors in the body. So our GABA and our glutamate, calming seizures, calming anxiety, our serotonin, our dopamine, giving us that feel-good sensation, calming anxiety, calming fears, trip receptors, reducing pain, reducing some of that neuropathy. And it's really like that pleiotropic workhorse. But all of these compounds work together in what we call the entourage effect. And so you don't want an isolate of just one or the other. You want them to play together like a symphony. And I always give the analogy of the symphony. When you go down to Symphony Hall, it's nice to hear the solo violin, but you really need the rest of the orchestra. And that is how this plant works best, when we have all of these compounds working together. CBD and THC are what we call the power couple. CBD can soften the effects of THC. So THC, a lot of times people are afraid of that. I don't want to be high. I don't want to lose my balance. I don't want to be impaired. And so it'll take down some of that. CBD also enhances the benefits of THC. And then THC returns the favor by enhancing CBD. So a lot of times people will say, I tried CBD, it didn't work. Maybe they had an isolate or a broad spectrum where there was no THC. You need to pull in a little bit of THC, use a more full spectrum hemp CBD oil, or throw in a little bit of THC from other sources, dispensary products, and then you'll have a little bit more of a balance. 20 to 1, 20 parts CBD, 1 part THC is good. Other ratios that you'll find at dispensaries are the 1 to 1, like Sativax, where you have equal parts CBD, THC. That is perfect for the evening, for pain, for sleep, etc. CBD, you're going to want more in the day. But when we give them together, you can maximize the benefits and minimize the harms. And really, this is the art and science of medicine. So we're going to go through all of these just quickly on this slide, and then I've got a couple other slides that talk about the onset and the duration. But topicals are a great first introduction if you're on the fence. They don't cross the bloodstream, and they're really good for surface area pain and inflammation. Tinctures are the oils and the drops. You can drop them sublingually under the tongue. They melt into the oral mouth membranes, what we call the oral mucosa, and you can get right into the bloodstream that way. Edibles are capsules, gummies, candies, and drinks, and these, have a longer onset, but they also last a lot longer. So what we do is say a tincture is a short acting, the edibles, the capsules are the long acting, and when we use them together, we have good pain management. Patches are something that we can use, and inhalation is where people always think about where you need to start, but many people never smoke anything. They don't want to inhale, they don't want to cough, etc. And so you can have vape pens and cannabis joints, and then you buy cannabis products, what we call marijuana, with the THC in a dispensary. And most of the time for CBD, you're going to want online retailers or CBD shops, because there's not a whole lot of good CBD in the dispensaries because they don't sell it. If you think about a store, if nobody's buying something, eventually you stop carrying it. And because of the recreational focus in California, especially with our 3,500 dispensaries, people are looking for the high THC, so it's hard to find CBD in the shops. So inhalation is the first thing. So if you do want to try a vape pen, or you maybe grow some plants and you have your own and you want to just roll it up and smoke it, the good thing about it is that the onset is within minutes. So if you're in a lot of pain, if you're in angst, if you're vomiting, if you just need to take a puff because you need to squelch that nausea, this is the fastest onset. And so you can take a puff, wait 5 minutes, see if you need any more, and then repeat every couple of hours, because that's about the duration. So quick onset, quick duration, and it provides rapid relief for nausea, angst, and pain. Vaporization is healthier than combustion. So if you use a vape pen, make sure that it's tested so that it's free from contaminants, and then don't overuse it too much. But inhalation also, especially with smoking, grants access to terpenes more, and a lot of the vape pens are also made with terpenes, and the terpenes like linalool can calm, limonene can give you energy, pinene can give you more clarity, beta-caryophyllene is a terpene workhorse that also is a cannabinoid, and it activates CB2, our immune cell receptors, and it's very anti-inflammatory. But pain basically benefits most from a 1-to-1. And you'll hear indica versus sativa, and indica is more the relaxing, sativa is more for the energy. The tinctures are the extracts. These are the drops, right? So this is our short-acting liquids, onset in about 15 to 30 minutes, maybe 45 if you've just eaten something. Duration is about 4 to 6 hours. I always tell people to swish. When you get these drops in your mouth, think about your mouth like a tennis court. You want to paint everything, allow it to just sit there for about a minute, sort of switching it around, and then just meditate, just imagery, use some imagery where the compounds are going into the bloodstream, floating around the body, healing whatever you need to be healed, and have that mind-body experience, because it does work. There is consistent dosing in milligrams per mil, which as a clinician, I need all the time for my patients. The droppers are graduated. So you'll see the dropper there. It'll have 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, and 1, and that is a milliliter. And then the potency can vary in the bottle. This one is 1,200 milligrams. This one's 3,000 milligrams. So now we have to figure out how many milligrams per milliliter. It can vary from 10 to 100. And so, when you're taking a dropper of something, it's critical to know what your milligram per milliliter is. And then use more CBD than THC. Rotate various times of the day. We want CBD in the day, THC in the evening, and then dose every 4 to 6 hours. That's the duration. So as it's wearing off, take a little bit more. Okay, topicals. So topicals, you can apply onset in about 10 minutes. You're going to a duration of about 3 to 4 hours. Apply often and at bedtime. I always tell patients, take your shower, put your topical on wherever it's hurting you, and then at bedtime, and then another couple of times as needed during the day. CBD and THC go through the skin and can help relieve some of the inflammation, pain signaling, and offer comfort. CBD topicals penetrate a little better than THC, but for really severe pain, some people do like to use THC topicals. And neuropathies can benefit from this. I really like the soothing balm. Some of them can really help the neuropathy. And, this goes back to tinctures on the outside and tinctures on the inside and topicals on the outside. And that's how I healed myself. I started to take tinctures and capsules internally, and then I used the topical externally. And that's how I was able to beat the pain and get back into PT. But for cancer patients, again, dealing with all of the complicated issues, this is a toolkit, and you got to have a little bit of everything. Transdermals and systemic patches, these actually go through the bloodstream. So when we think about patches, think about the nicotine patches that you could use to quit smoking. They actually have activators. So you put them on an area where there's thin skin, or you can put them directly over where it's hurting you. And it gives you that continual basal dosing. And what that means is slow release. So it's continuously giving you onset in about 20 minutes and a duration of about 24 to 48 hours. So some people, put out a patch on every couple of days, and it gives them that maintenance dose. And then they use the tinctures and the topicals and inhalation as needed for the breakthrough symptoms and for deeper penetration into the system. So going back to dispensaries now. So what is a dispensary? It is the retail shop where you can purchase cannabis products, and the sales employees are called bud tenders, kind of like a bartender, and they are sales employees. They are retail people. They're going to show you the products that might help you, but they're not clinicians. They don't understand exactly what to take for any specific cancer, but they might say this is higher in THC, but it's balanced, so it'll help you with appetite, something that might help with sleep, and the products come now in different compositions that might help more directly with sleep. And then there are strains, right? So we talked about indica earlier. That has the relaxing effects, and the sativas have more of an energizing effect. Hybrid is a combination. And again, make sure that you get that COA or certificate of analysis to know that that product has been tested for potency and purity. Excuse me. And then something that is very common, especially in chat rooms on the internet, is something called Rick Simpson oil, or RSO. Some dispensaries carry them. Less and less do nowadays, though. And it's a highly concentrated oil for maximum dosing. And so you always want to consult a specialist if you want to look at Rick Simpson oil or fully extracted cannabis oil. It's very, very concentrated oil, where even just a drop of it could be 50 milligrams. And so you get a whole syringe where you've got a gram, and that's 1,000 milligrams. That's very, very potent and must be used with caution. Okay. So side effects. Every medicine comes with side effects. So we know all the side effects from the pharmaceuticals. When it comes to cannabis, THC can cause dizziness, disorientation. That's that high. I don't feel quite normal. Intensified awareness, short-term memory impairment, anxiety with high THC, slowed reactions, low blood pressure, low blood sugar. It can drop both, and then raise heart rate, tachycardia, bronchodilation, open up the blood vessels in the lungs, sedation, make you tired, muscle relaxation, increased appetite, and red eyes. CBD, a little bit of dizziness. At high doses, it can cause a little sedation, and at low doses, a little bit of hyperactivity, especially in children. And CBD, I mentioned earlier, Epidiolex is purified CBD that is FDA approved. And it's being treating kids with those rare seizure disorders, and they find hyperactivity when they're introducing CBD to kids. Generally, adults don't have it. Loose stools, sometimes that is from the oils, especially those made with olive oil can do that. Jitteriness, and then biphasic properties. And this is important, not just for CBD, but THC as well. A low dose will do one thing, and a high dose does the opposite. And there's a dose curve where that sweet spot is up here. And every single person needs to find their own sweet spot, because what it is for me is going to be very different than it is for you. And then these are the enzymes that metabolize drugs. And that goes to the point that I made earlier, to take the pharmaceuticals, drink a lot of water, have some food and fluids, and then take the cannabinoids later to give. If you think of your body like a choo-choo train, that's the digestive tract. So you want to give the pharmaceuticals some space to clear, then have some food and fluids, then you take the cannabinoids. It gives us a safe buffer so that we can use both the pharmaceuticals and the cannabinoids. All of the effects of these plant compounds vary based on your age, your sex, your weight, product composition, dosing, your tolerance, pharmaceuticals that are on board, your medical conditions, etc. But there is no lethal dose. If we take too much oxycodone, you can go to sleep and not wake up, because it can impair the cardiorespiratory center. Cannabis doesn't do that. There are no side effects that are lethal. Any of these side effects that you might feel uncomfortable with THC dissipate in time, but when you take it together with CBD, it can help offset some of that feeling at the CB1 receptor in the brain, where your body's interpreting this. Having some black pepper, lemon, food and fluids can also help relieve some of that feeling. So safety precautions, there's a phrase in this industry: start low, go slow. And that means, introduce these compounds, see how you do a couple of days of CBD, then fold in a little bit of THC, then just increase it. And generally, with these ratio products, the CBD number is first, the THC number is second. So a 1-to-1 is equal parts. A 4-to-1 would be 4 parts CBD, 1 part THC, 20-to-1, 20 parts CBD, 1 part THC. These are good places to start. And then as you start acclimating to THC, you can use more and more, and the body adapts to it. So like week 1, you're going to use very little THC. Week 2, you can use more THC. Week 3, you can use even more. And that's how people get used to, like, the RSO, those high potency products that are really trying to reprogram those cancer cells to turn off. THC is dose dependent, higher milligrams, higher side effects. Always start with more CBD to THC. Dosing 10 to 500 milligrams a day. Most people are using under 50 milligrams, especially with THC. CBD, you might want to be 100 to 200 milligrams. Take with food and stay hydrated. These compounds can be drying. One of the universal side effects is a dry mouth. So you're just going to want to make sure that you have hydration, spacing from other medicines. Don't drive, operate machinery, or work while acclimating to THC. And then when you vaporize or smoke for the first time, have another person present, because it can be jarring. It's something that, a lot of people will be like, wow, that was the most peaceful experience I've ever had. Some people are panicked because their body just goes haywire with THC, and you don't know who you're going to be. So I always tell people to have a little bit of a buffer there and be hopeful. This can work. We provide the medicalized approach where we do an assessment of everything that you have going on. And so that's your pharmaceuticals, your condition, your history, etc. And then a holistic assessment. What are you eating? How are you moving? How are you connecting? How are you inspiring joy and hope? And then we educate you on all the different cannabinoids, the routes of administration, minimum and maximum dosing, and then how to track and gauge efficacy. And that's my tracking log. So I give these to my clients and, 1 to 10, where are we at today? And 1 to 10, where are we at on a week follow-up call or 2 weeks follow-up call in our pain, our anxiety, our memory, our focus, our joy, our mood, our energy levels, how well we're sleeping, blood pressure and blood sugar are both impacted by these, and then dosing and where we're at. And so you need to dial it in, and I call these my gauges. And then when I'm doing follow-up calls with people, we make adjustments to things based on how we're improving. Unfortunately, none of these are covered by insurance yet because, we're going to get there one day, but it's got to be rescheduled. And, this is the approximate cost of some good medicines that are in dispensaries or in the hemp CBD shops. And I always tell people budget for about $150 a month so that you can mix and match and have a toolkit that you are going to assemble for yourself to be able to use those. And where we are, is whole person care. The oncology team is looking at you by the numbers. What are your labs? What are your scans? What are your chemotherapy doses? When are your radiation schedule? When do you get surgery, etc. Where the patient team is really here, and we need to bring them all together. And so there's a physician that I follow. His name is Wayne Jonas, and he cues up the Healing Works Foundation and talks about, the hope notes that we need to be writing for people, and not just the soap notes, which we've all been trained in, but it's, all of the peripheries of life. We're a whole person. We're not just our numbers. So we have to be able to have somebody that talks to us about all of these different things and bringing in the other disciplines of, sleep and acupuncture, nutrition, exercise, and other engagement on how we can work together for whole person care. And I'll come back to that in a minute. There's one more slide I thought I had. But yeah, let me jump out of here and just show you a very quick video with Marta. And Marta is one of our patients that we got on hospice 5 years ago. And this is just a real quick story, just a minute video. And I just want you to hear Marta's story of how she was feeling on the pharmaceuticals and how she was feeling after that, and what her response was.
Question is if there's anyone out there that has cancer and is considering cannabis, what would you tell them?
Try, because work really for me, and it's true, it's working. So why not? Doesn't make you worse, doesn't give you any side effect that all my medication that I was taking was given to me. I was really sleeping all day and not doing anything. I didn't have any energy to do anything. Not only I was down with my, I was not happy, but I was seeing that I couldn't do anything. My husband was washing the dishes, he was trying to cook. I was not able to walk for a period. When I finished my radiation, I was on a wheelchair. Now I cook like crazy. I live again. I see my grandkids. I saw my oldest one is an engineer now, and it's unbelievable. I have another life. I had another shot of life.
Yeah, and that was Marta, honestly, it's.
Can't go,
whoops.
do this to clear out stuff
Sorry,
fast.
how do I-
On June
let me
17th in
close that.
2019.
Sorry, that was crazy. Hold on, let me go back and go back to here. Okay, so, and then let me just go back to Marta. So Marta was brought to us on hospice, and all she wanted was something that was going to help her eat, and help her from gets better sleep and treat some of the pain. She didn't like the oxycodone. She was on a lot of it. And you heard her say she couldn't do anything on the pharmaceuticals. And what happened was we started her on CBD capsules in the morning, and a 1-to-1 CBD THC capsule at bedtime. And Marta started to improve. And yeah, we have another video where Marta, and she helped us shoot a documentary. And she said, you know, her oncologist was puzzled because they couldn't find the cancer anymore. And they didn't understand what was going on, but the cannabinoids were healing her, and she had pancreatic cancer. You know, my mother also had pancreatic cancer, and I gave her the same therapy, and it didn't work for her. Marta was 70 when she started. She's 75 now. My mother was 86 when I was treating her. And so you just never know, but that's why we say that it requires a way to get started, and then a massaging of the treatment plan. Coincidentally, Martha's husband also was stricken with cancer. She gave him the same things she's taking, the CBD in the morning and the 1-to-1 capsules in the evening, and he's now free of cancer, no evidence of disease either. And so, you know, it just goes to show you, you gotta just be faithful and keep trying. So that was the end of my presentation. There was one question that I was sent earlier. And you know, this is, I always like to go through the Q&A, and we're going to have a few minutes of Q&A now. But you know, when we're looking at using immunotherapy with something like Keytruda, Opdivo, any of these cancer immunotherapies together with CBD and THC. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but cannabinoids are anti-inflammatory, which is why they work so well. We don't want to both inflame and suppress the immune system at the same time. So we use THC in a supporting role, 25 milligrams, CBD around 100 milligrams, so that we can take it together with the immunotherapy. And then most patients find high doses of cannabinoids while they're taking immunotherapy and do just fine. So the key is in the monitoring of both, and in great communication between the doctor, the patient, and the cannabis clinician. And that is really, you know, the key, good communication with everything. And then finally, you know, just to close, this is my company, Bloom Hemp. What makes us different? Nurses, and we have a pharmacist. There are all of our staff are clinicians and medical people. USDA organic hemp CBD, symptom targeted formulations. We have a free nurse line, 970-404-HOPE. And on the services tab, you just click there and you get a free care plan. So just email us, go here, and then you can fill out an intake. We'll email you things that are going to be beneficial for you. And then there's a free network on holisticcaring.com. Click just join the network. We provide patient-centered care. And there are programs in here. There's a free introduction to cannabis course, a patient portal to connect with your peers, a free 7-page medical cannabis guide on the website. And then with free monthly clinical conversations, which I love doing, where we break down a condition. What does cannabis, what does conventional medicine do to treat it? How does cannabis play a role? What is the research on how we might use these together? And then protocols, and then all of the other tips and tricks, and then training for professionals. So if you want your doctor to get training, that's what we do as well. So with that, I am done, and you have a copy of these slides. Let me stop sharing and then answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Elisabeth. That was just jam-packed with information. I'm so glad this is recorded. We do have some questions.
Okay.
Which is better in higher doses for actually killing cancer cells, THC or CBD?
Well, as I've been saying, you want to use them together, right? But THC is going to activate those CB1 and CB2 receptors and be much more targeted in killing the cancer cells. CBD is sort of that weighted blanket on your body, going throughout all of the system, and CBD is better at causing it not to spread. So shutting down the ID1 genes, doing other things in a much more nurturing fashion. THC is like the sledgehammer that's going in there doing specific things. CBD is the multimodal type of response, and you need both of them. And really, you know, as far as dosing, you have to be led through this a little bit. But if you were to take a high CBD oil, like our Bloom trilogy in CBD, CBG, CBN, these are all non-psychoactive, non-impairing. You can take those during the day and then use THC at bedtime in either a 1-to-1 or just all THC. That's really how we do it, because you want to take THC at bedtime because A, it helps you sleep, although that's an art too. Small amounts, sometimes people wake up and they get stimulated. It's kind of like, you know, having a drink. Some people, they have a drink and they they want to dance. Some people have a drink and they want to go to sleep. THC is very similar to that. So it's nuanced, but think THC at bedtime, CBD and its components like CBG and CBN during the day.
Thank you. What dose is recommended for peripheral neuropathy?
Well, again, you know, CBD and THC, CBG, you know, the peripheral neuropathy, again, I really like to talk about the inside using the tinctures and the capsules, and the outside, you know, rubbing the balms and the salves into the feet, into the hands, into, you know, other spots that might have some neuropathy as well. The soothing balm is really good. It's got frankincense and myrrh and cinnamon and calendula. That is really good for soothing some of the neuropathy, but you need to hit it from the inside too. And because if we think about what is neuropathy, it's fried out nerves. And cannabinoids are patented by the US government back in 2002 as neuroprotectant antioxidants. And neuroprotection means that it's preserving our nerve cells, helping them to be repaired from damage and decay. And that is how we can heal some of the neuropathies. But it takes the right medicines and good dosing. When I think about the Bloom Trilogy product, that is 100 milligrams per mil. I always tell people to take about 50 milligrams, 25 to 50 milligrams at a time, because sometimes you can get sleepy with it. But if you get sleepy, just nap for 20 minutes. You'll be okay again. And then, but you really need to be tracking. So have a chart and really track what you take and what the effects are, not just today, immediacy, but also what am I noticing as a trend? And then what do I want to repeat? What do I not want to repeat? What do I need to, where's my shortcoming still? And then fill that in a little bit as you go.
Thank you. I did upload the slides to the chat. In one of the slides, she did show an example log of how to track. If you can review again about products, if you can get them at any dispensary.
The products that, well, any dispensary. So yeah, any dispensary is able to, you know, have the THC products, and you find those through Weed Maps. I'll put that in the chat too. And for the hemp CBD, that is my shop. If you wanted to work with us and get the free care plans, we will be happy to work with you. 4673 is our phone line. info@bloomhemp.com, because I have two companies. So Holistic Caring is our nurse coaching. Bloom Hemp is the hemp CBD, and basically we have USDA organic hemp grown in the mountains of Colorado. It ships to all 50 states generally in about 3 days, and then you can go to weedmaps.com or www.leafly.com. And those are where you can buy THC products. So you just go there and you'll put in your zip code or where you are, and then you'll be able to find all the dispensaries around you. Some have delivery, etc. So the THC is in the dispensaries. The CBD, like I said, is mainly in the hemp CBD markets, because dispensaries don't carry it much anymore. So yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? You can put them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and that indicate to me that you have a question for Elisabeth. And again, I did put my email in there. I know there was so much good information. If you want to review it again, please do email me. I'd be more than happy to share the recording along with the slides again. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
Are there any supplements that you should avoid if you are in the process of tracking your CBD THC use, like vitamin supplements or whatever?
Generally, supplements can be given together with the cannabinoids. Some people find that they want to space things. Again, just like the pharmaceuticals, some people can take a handful of supplements all at once. Some people need to separate them out a little bit. And that rule of thumb just goes to anything. But as far as, some people say, don't take St. John's wort, don't take things that are going to be potentiated too much, treat them like a pharmaceutical. That's really the rule of thumb, but there's really no supplements that I would say, you cannot take with cannabinoids like CBD. THC, if you're taking things that are going to wire you up, you might not want to use THC at the same time, because it's having a stacking approach. And the other thing is, you guys have the slides, so don't dose any sooner than those what the duration is, because one of the mistakes that people make is they'll take 5 milligrams of THC, said I didn't feel it, then they take another 5 milligrams an hour later, and then another 5 milligrams an hour after that, and now they're really intoxicated and impaired, and they don't feel well. So you don't want to do that. But really, there aren't many supplements that I think that you have to steer clear of. It's really just applying that pharmaceutical spacing rule where you have that buffer zone to process one thing through the liver at a time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And this is going to be our last question. I appreciate you, Elizabeth, staying on a little bit longer, and everyone else as well. In your experience, are doctors pretty receptive to working with THC and CBD, or also nurses, or are they more reluctant?
Well, as I said, I do believe, the American Nurses Association designated cannabis nursing as a specialty. And we write the programs that are actually going to be training those future nurses at Holistic Caring. And there's continuing education for nurses of 30 hours of continuing education units for our big program. Doctors don't have that mandate. Doctors are not saying that this is going to be a specialty. Doctors are writing the FDA prescribed prescriptions. However, when we have rescheduling, which I do believe we're on the cusp of in this country, and if cannabis is taken into the Schedule 3 from Schedule 1, so no medical benefits, to in the same schedule as ketamine, testosterone, and other steroids, which was Schedule 3, now doctors will be able to start prescribing it. So now you're going to have the biotech and cannabinoid pharmaceuticals being manufactured, but we're years away from that. Doctors and many of them will say, okay, go to the dispensary and get a 1-to-1 oil and try it, but they're not there to coach you, which is why the nurses play that special role, because doctors just aren't ready to do that yet. And many of them fear losing their license for talking about this, right? Especially as it remains a Schedule 1 drug. They're not going to touch it with, it's like nuclear weapons. Like it's crazy out there. Which is why the nurses have had to step up and fill the gap. And like I said, I bridge the gap between conventional and cannabis medicine for patients, because they need that. There's not many people that are willing to do this. And so I've been doing this now since I got hurt in 2014, just about a decade. So it's hard. It's hard work. But I'm not giving up.
Wonderful. There's a wonderful comment. Great presentation. Proud of you, Nurse Elisabeth, and what you and your team are doing at Holistic Caring. Thank you. And I think that really just sums up our appreciation for sharing this information with our community today.
Yeah, thank you very